Okay, so in the last video, I didn't complete the video because the recording, the app I was using to recording cut me off. So what I was saying was that I stopped the video there. Then in this current video now, I'm going to continue. We will take each of the type one after the other, at least the major ones we will be using in our project one after the other, and we'll see how they work. Now we have seen about the text element. The text element is when you want to collect a single line sentence or the name or anything at all. Now we are going to look at the radio button. Now for the radio button, I'm going to copy this form because of typing copy, so that it won't cut me off again. I'll just copy, then I'll explain it. So now when I paste, I save. Now I'll go to my browser. Now when I come to my browser, can you see, choose your favorite web page. Now the radio button, like I told you, you can only use it to make one selection. Now when I select this and I select CSS, it will only select one. So that's what radio button do. But let's see how it works. Let's go back to the VS Code. Now the first one, the input. Now we have the form. Okay, that reminds me, in some cases the input can come before the label, and in some cases the label can come before the input, depending on how you want it to be, depending on your arrangement. Now in this arrangement, the input came before the label. Now let's look at the attribute. Now the type is radio. The input type for all of them are radio whenever you want to make. Now the ID, remember that this one has ID name of HTML, this one have ID name of CSS, and this one have ID name of JavaScript. Can you see they are unique to each of them? No one can have the same ID name as the other. Now the next one is the name, favorite language, favorite language, favorite language. Now whenever you are working with radio button, all of them should have the same name. Reason being that when they have the same name, it means that you are selecting one. Let me give you an example. I'm going to remove this language on this JavaScript. I will clean it and I will save. Now when I go back to my browser and I select JavaScript and I select HTML, can you see that the two are selecting? Now when I select CSS, HTML, it will select HTML again, because CSS and HTML are having the same name, but JavaScript is not having the same name as them. So when you want to work on radio button, make sure that they have the same name. That is, the browser will be able to know that, okay, this person, you're asking them to make one selection. So this is just what it means. Now the value, what the value means is that the value and the name, that's the value is HTML, the value for the CSS is CSS, and the value for the JavaScript is also JavaScript. The value is just what you want that one to be. That's what the value is. So the next one is the checkbox. Now let me explain from here without going to our VS Code. Now you can see the input, the same thing. The ID, this one, can you see now? Vehicle number 1. This one ID vehicle number 2. This one ID vehicle number 3. Meaning they can't have the same ID name, but they can have, like, okay, now the name now, vehicle number 1, vehicle number 2, vehicle number 3. Now remember what I told you, when you are using radio button, you are making only one selection, and when you are making only one selection, you are going to give all of them the same name. But when you are working with checkbox means you are making multiple selections, and when you are making multiple selections, you are going to give all of them different names. Do you understand? Now the value bike ahead, you can give value. This one is bike, this one is car, this one is good. Now I'm going to use, okay, let me just copy this. Let me copy this and I'll paste in my VS Code. I'll paste and I'll save and I'll go to my browser so that you see. Now this is checkbox. This is how checkbox look like. Now when I select this, I can select all of them because I can have all of them. But with radio button, you can only make one selection. So in a situation whereby you want to prepare a form for a user and you want them to make a single selection out of many selections, you can use the radio button. In a situation whereby you want them to make so many selections, you can use the checkbox button. So that is that for this. Now the next one is there are many. I don't think we can finish it, but I will provide you. I will attach um, I will attach an image to this video when I'm sending it. I will attach a video either to the link if I upload it on YouTube, or I'll attach it as I'm sending it to you, so that you will see more of this attribute and how you can use it. So the name, I have already explained it for you. Now the exercise. Now we have the form attribute, which we have done, the form element, which we have done, the input type. Let's look more on the input types. Now look at them. Now we have various types. We have the button, where you want to click on a button, like you want to click on a button, submit button, you can use the button to do. We have the checkbox, which I have explained. We have the color. If you want someone to select color, you can use the color. Now the date, when you want to prepare a calendar, you can use the type, the input type to be date. When you want the date time to be local, you can use, depending on what. If you want email, like the input must be email, you indicate that the type must be email. Now there's another thing I want to explain. Now okay, let me go back to that first one, the form. Now in this input, now I can add required. I can add required and save. Now in this required, what this required means is that the user will not be permitted to submit this form until they fill this particular one. Until they fill this particular one, you said should be required. Now you are validating the form. It means that you can't submit, the person can't submit the form without inputting those things. So it is always advisable, whenever you are working on input, always attach that. Anyone you need them to submit, always add this required. Now there's another one, a placeholder. There's what we call placeholder. Placeholder. Now placeholder means, for example, let me save this and go to the browser. Now can you see that the input box are empty? Now maybe the person does not even know what to write. You can give the person a tip of first name. I can go back to my VS Code and say, okay, placeholder name should be Michael. Then I will save. Then I'll come back to this second one, last name. I can say, okay, your placeholder name should be John, and I will save. Now when I go back to my browser, can you see now you have a placeholder? You have Michael, it have John. It doesn't mean that this one is what the person is going to write. You are giving the person tips of what he should fill in that particular form. So when I click on it, when I start writing, the Michael disappears. But when I clean it again, the Michael appears. So this is what placeholder does. So I think with this understanding, you should be able to have done a little justice on the form element. Let me see. I think with this we can. Okay. With this we can say, okay, we'll now go to we'll go to CSS. We'll continue with CSS. We can, with this class, we can say we have come to an end to HTML class. Most of this thing I skipped in HTML, we'll cover them in CSS. So that's why I skip most of them. So see you in CSS class.